Today, we are tackling a massive economic puzzle, one that honestly trips up even the experts, and that's public debt. Is it a powerful tool for growth, or is it just a one-way ticket to a full-blown crisis?
Okay, let's just get right into the central mystery here. You've got Japan with a public debt that is, and this is staggering, over twice the size of its entire economy. And yet, it's one of the most stable nations in the world. But then you have countries like Sri Lanka who face total economic collapse with debt levels that look tiny in comparison. It just doesn't add up. So what on earth is going on?
To even start to get a handle on this, you got to understand that economists themselves are pretty split on the whole thing. On one side, you have the Keynesian view, which basically says, hey, debt can be a useful tool. When the economy's in a slump, the government can borrow money and spend it to get things moving again. But the classical view, well, it's a lot more skeptical. It says that all that government borrowing just sucks up the available cash, which makes it way harder for private companies to get loans and invest. They call this crowding out.
So if the experts are divided, how are we supposed to figure this out? Well, we look at the real world. And for this explainer, we're going to zoom way in on the story of one developing nation, Nepal, to see if its experience can help us solve this global debt puzzle.
And our guide on this journey, it's this really incredible piece of research. A 2023 master's thesis in economics by Sagar Khadka from Tribhuvan University, right there in Kathmandu. It's a serious deep dive into Nepal's public debt and its whole relationship with economic growth.
So first things first, why does a country like Nepal even borrow money? Well, as the research points out, for a lot of developing countries, there's this big gap between what they have and what they need to grow. So they borrow to fund the absolute essentials, things like roads, power plants, schools. This isn't about luxury, it's a necessity for them to build a future.
And here it is, the key number for Nepal. For the fiscal year 2024/25, their total public debt is projected to be about 44% of their GDP. Now you hear that, and you think, compared to Japan's 200+%, that sounds totally manageable, right? Well, as we're about to find out, it is not that simple.
So let's get right to it. What's the verdict from the research? Is Nepal's debt situation as safe and sound as that 44% number makes it seem? Or are there some kind of hidden danger lurking just beneath the surface?
And here it is, the core finding of the entire thesis, summed up perfectly right in the abstract. The sustainability of Nepal's debt is maintained, but it is fragile. That one sentence right there captures the whole delicate balancing act that the country is trying to pull off.
So this is absolutely crucial to understand. The real risk isn't just the total size of the debt, the big headline number. It's the cost of servicing it, just making the interest payments. Think about it like a mortgage on your house. Who cares if you have $1 million loan, as long as your monthly payments are tiny and you can afford them? But what happens if interest rates shoot up? Suddenly, even a smaller loan can become this crushing burden. And the thesis finds that for Nepal, these service costs are on a rising trend, and that is where the fragility comes from.
Okay, now this is where things get really fascinating. The research uncovers this strange kind of counterintuitive effect of taking on debt from other countries. Right away, when a new loan comes in, it has almost no impact. Then, after about a year, once that money starts getting spent on projects, it actually gives the economy a boost. But in the long run, the weight of having to pay it all back starts to drag everything down, and the overall effect actually turns negative.
And this table from the IMF is brilliant, because it shows why, on paper, Nepal's debt is considered sustainable. See, if you look at that medium capacity row, the official risk level for debt to GDP is around 55%. Nepal's 44% is comfortably under that line. So yeah, by all the international standards, they are in a safe zone. But, as we're learning, being in the safe zone doesn't mean there aren't risks simmering away.
So this brings us full circle, right back to our original paradox. Why can countries like Japan handle these massive, eye-watering debt loads that would absolutely crush a country like Nepal? Well, the research gives us the playbook.
Here's how they do it. For one, they have really strong, trusted institutions, so they can borrow money very, very cheaply. But the big one, the absolute game changer, is that most of their debt is in their own currency, a currency they control. That is a massive advantage. It means if things get really bad, they can basically print more money to pay off their debts. This is exactly the trap that Sri Lanka fell into. A lot of its debt was in foreign currencies, so when their own currency got weaker, their debt burden just exploded overnight.
So after all of that, what's the big takeaway? What are the really important lessons we can learn from watching Nepal walk this tightrope?
The thesis wraps up with 3 super clear recommendations. First,
improve fiscal discipline, which is really just a fancy way of saying manage your budget better. Second, make government more effective and capable. And third, and this is probably the most important one, shift spending away from just covering day-to-day costs and put that money into capital projects that are actually going to create long-term growth.
And you know, that brings us to our final thought. Maybe, just maybe, we've been asking the wrong question this whole time. The ultimate lesson from Nepal's story, and maybe the key to the whole global debt paradox, is that the critical question isn't how much debt. It's debt for what?